watching I-24 News. I'm Ariel Margalit. Thank you for staying with us with our ongoing coverage of the war between Israel and Hamas. It's the fifth day. More than 1,200 people. That's the updated account of deaths here in Israel during this war, and the number is expected to climb. More than 3,000 people have been injured, and as many as 200 people could be abducted with Hamas. We don't have the exact numbers. They haven't been published yet. In the last hour, some of the recent updates that we're getting, Israel is attacking back in Lebanon after some shells were fired into Israel, anti-tank missiles to be exact, from a Lebanese side of the border into Israel. This follows some rockets that were fired into Israel overnight from Syria. So our eyes are on the northern border with Israel, where Hezbollah might take advantage of the Hamas attack on Israel to join the war efforts from there. Israeli troops, of course, have been deployed to the northern front, and people have been recommended to evacuate. Before we give you more information about other fronts, I would like to introduce my guest here in studio, Colonel in Reserves, Dr. Jacques Neria. He's the former deputy head of assessment at the Israeli military intelligence and former foreign policy advisor to the late Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, and Avi Pazner, a former Israeli ambassador to Italy, among his many other distinguished titles. Thank you very much for coming into our studio. Just a few more updates before I turn to you. We have seen some new barrages on Sderot in the last hour. One person was moderately injured there. At least 9 rockets were fired on the city of Sderot, 2 of which landed on schools. The schools in Israel have been closed, of course, since the attack began on Saturday. The United States and President Biden have reiterated their support in Israel by sending an aircraft carrier to the eastern Mediterranean off the coast of Israel. This aircraft carrier has arrived. In addition to that, a first shipment of military equipment has arrived from the United States on a carrier, a cargo carrier that landed in Israel. Joe Biden, President of the United States, reiterating yesterday his commitment to stand by Israel, whether it is in its efforts to retaliate to the attack by Hamas or any other attacks by its neighbors.
This was an act of sheer evil. More than 1,000 civilians slaughtered, not just killed, slaughtered in Israel. Among them, at least 14 American citizens killed. Parents butchered, using their bodies to try to protect their children. Stomach-turning reports of babies being killed. Entire families slain. Young people massacred while attending a musical festival to celebrate peace. Women raped, assaulted, paraded as trophies. Families hid their fear for hours and hours, desperately trying to keep their children quiet to avoid drawing attention. And thousands of wounded, alive but carrying with them the bullet holes and the shrapnel wounds and the memory of what they endured. The Department of Defense has moved the USS Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group to the Eastern Mediterranean and bolstered our fighter aircraft presence. And we stand ready to move in additional assets as needed. Let me say again, to any country, any organization, anyone thinking of taking advantage of this situation, I have one word: don't. Don't. Our hearts may be broken, but our resolve is clear.
Colonel in reserves, Dr. Jacques Neria, listening to President Biden, many Israelis were waiting to hear similar authority and similar leadership from the government here in Israel.
Unfortunately, our Prime Minister is just evading to confront the public, evading to confront his responsibility, evading even to show. I mean, the only shows are the pre-registered, and this is what our Prime Minister. There's no leadership. There is no leadership. All our ministers for the last 3 days, most of them did not show up, and those who showed up were so poor, express themselves so poorly that this is really something that unacceptable. And I think that they will have to pay the price. If I were in his position, I would say I would give back the keys today. This is what it is about. Now, trying to evade and blame others and blame other circumstances and create so-called a theory of conspiracy that somebody opened the gate and the commandos went inside. This is crazy. We know that this is not the fact. 1,500 terrorists invaded Israel.
At least 1,500.
At least with the idea of taking over the territory. Were it not the heroism of the kibbutzim and the moshavim and the local civilians who are living there, I think that we would have lost this part of the territory to the Hamas, because he would have consolidated his position, because the army was not there. The army was absent. This is not the time to make to draw lessons. But time will come after the war when those people will have to be investigated and give answers to very dire questions, very severe questions. Why did it happen? How did it happen? What were the reasons behind it? And it is not enough for me that they will pay with their position. This is too cheap. This is a too cheap solution.
So what would you expect?
I expect them to be barred from any public position, and in some cases, maybe this is a criminal decision might be taken against them. This is something unprecedented. You know, you see the pictures and you understand the dimension of the catastrophe. Entire families were erased, were exterminated. Babies were killed, beheaded. Women were raped. This is incredible.
And there were reports, Dr. Jacques Neria, of the Egyptians alarming Prime Minister Netanyahu's office 10 days in advance that they should watch the front, the Gazan front, that there might be some developments worth noticing there with exclamation mark. I want to turn to Hamda Salhout, who is in Sderot. Hamda, these reports that Egypt has warned Israel from this attack have been basically pushed back by the Prime Minister's office. He's been saying that they have no basis. What are we hearing from Egyptian media or Egyptian sources? There is an Egyptian source that gave that piece of information, of course, to journalists. But other than him, do we have any more evidence of the fact that such a call indeed took place?
Well, reports yesterday are indicating that the Prime Minister's office initially denied any such claims, but they are taking responsibility now, saying that Egyptian officials did warn them about a possible security situation coming from the Gaza Strip. It's also worth noting that a lot of experts in the international community are slamming Israel's failure in terms of intelligence to really foresee this type of attack that Hamas has launched against Israel. The situation is something unprecedented. It's something Israel hasn't really seen, this type of state of war. Hamas trying to come into these southern communities and occupy them, as the Israeli military was saying. But that is exactly what Mohammed al-Dif said in his address on Saturday when he was giving his opening remarks, really, for the beginning of the operation he coined Aqsa Flood. He was saying that it is time to reoccupy the land. It is time for Palestinians to take what is theirs. The Egyptians apparently relaying a message to the Israelis saying that something imminent was going to take place. But the focus for Israel was on the West Bank and the rise in militancy in the West Bank. The Gaza border demonstrations that happened for around 2 or 3 weeks were really something that was in the back burner because they weren't very large. There were restrictions imposed on Gazan workers, but the Erez border crossing was closed. Around 18,000 workers couldn't come into Israel for work, so the attention wasn't really there. The focus was mainly on the West Bank, the Israeli military raids that happened almost nightly for the last 18 months, targeting suspects in that area. So the Israeli intelligence community is under a lot of scrutiny. They are a country who is supposed to have some of the best surveillance and intelligence in the world, and in this specific case, I mean, it was flawed, and there was a lot that slipped through the cracks.
Let's talk about what's happening where you are at right now, Sderot. We spoke just about half an hour ago after a barrage of 9 rockets hit the city. One person was moderately injured. What's been going on since, and what have you learned about the locations of these strikes?
Well, look, these strikes, these volleys of rockets are coming to southern communities in Israel. The Israeli military and police here in Sderot are working on clearing this police station behind me. They're working on removing bodies from it. The Israeli military says they've found around 1,500 Hamas bodies so far, but there are still several hundred, they think, throughout the rest of the country that they have not yet gotten to. So the war continues here. The volleys of rockets also continuously expected throughout the day, not just from Hamas, but also from Palestinian Islamic Jihad, as we saw a warning from them just yesterday.
Okay, Hamda, thank you very much. We'll be back with you the moment something there develops. Please do, of course, keep us posted and keep safe. We want to turn now back to the northern border, Ariel. Also on your update.
Right, Ariel. So the Israeli retaliation to the rocket launches on the Israeli northern border continues. Every few seconds we hear artillery shelling towards the Lebanese town, the Lebanese village of Tute, which is opposite the Israeli military base that they hit with anti-tank missiles. This exchange of fire has been going on for about half an hour now. There was also initially a suspected infiltration in Rosh Hanikra. That's the most western point of the Israel-Lebanon border. Really, it goes along the sea. So that was ruled out by Israeli military. Currently, the locals here and the 4-kilometer radius are instructed to remain nearby bomb shelters, and all the while we hear exchange of fire, mainly Israeli artillery responding to the firing from southern Lebanon.
Okay. Ariel, give us some updates that you're hearing from the IDF from the fighting in the south. Earlier, Daniel Agari, the IDF spokesman, mentioned 18 terrorists from Hamas that infiltrated from Gaza that were caught and killed in the last 24 hours. 169 families of soldiers that were given the harshest ever news of the deaths of their sons and daughters, and 60 of the abducted that received updates. With regarding to the fighting right now within Israel, the IDF has been saying on and off that it has caught all terrorists, but then saying that there might still some who might be free and walking around Israel, hiding in areas in the south. What do we know about the ability of the IDF so far to close the IDF to close the west the border with Gaza?
Right, Ariel. So before we move on down south, I will just quickly update that there is reports of exchange of arms, of a firefight taking place near the spot of the strike on the Israeli outpost along the border here and the Israel-Lebanon border. Now, regarding the situation down south, look, the IDF spokesperson said that the protection is not hermetic and there's still there's still gaps in the border fence, but each one is guarded by tanks, by Air Force. Now, he didn't say that there are no terrorists in Israel. He said that Israel has control over all territory inside Israel, but there could still remain some terrorists who have hidden and are waiting for the right moment to carry out an attack. over the past 24 hours. 18 of them have been killed. But there is indeed the possibility that there are more out in the field, and that's why very large, significant military presence all across the southern border with Gaza.